Hello, hi, good afternoon. So this is Krishnaveni and I've been taking you through a story of life on earth, and that's biology. So welcome to biology. So we are talking about class 11 and class 12 biology with reference to your NEET exam. Yes, Naveen, good afternoon, or very good afternoon, or very happy Pongal to you. So all the celebrations are done. So you're here after a heavy lunch. Is that so? But anyways, thank you so much for joining my session today. So please do like, share and subscribe. And for all those who are new, so remember, for Monday, Wednesday and Friday I teach for class 12, and for the remaining 3 days I teach for class 11. Alright, so today is Thursday, so we are looking at a class 11 chapter. Yes, good afternoon Priyanka. So wishing you a very happy birthday and a very happy Pongal. So stay safe and sound. Alright. So fine. So in the last class, that is today's Thursday, so on Tuesday we have been talking about your plant kingdom. So we spoke about your algae and we spoke about your bryophytes, right? So today we'll continue from there, we'll take off from there, we'll talk about your Terenophytes, Angiosperms and Gymnosperms. Yes, Keshav, hello, how are you? Yes, happy Pongal, happy Makar Sankranti. So thank you so much, and I'm here wishing you the same. So may you have a great year ahead, alright? Fine. So all of you had heavy lunch and you're feeling little drowsy, is that so? Yes, so are you planning to fall asleep in my session today? Yes, so definitely you would have had something very heavy, right? Something at least special, if not heavy. So what was that something special that you people hate? So all three are from South who are texting me. So what did you have today for lunch? So what was so special? Only veg, so not at all. Oh, so you didn't have non-veg, so you didn't find it interesting. Is that so? Yes, by the way, Keshav, I saw your picture in the wall of fame. So finally I saw you. Yes, I saw even Priyanka's picture. Yes, thank you Priyanka. Thank you for your wishes. So alright, so even if you have had a heavy lunch, even if you're still eating, it's fine. But please do pay attention. Today we do not have much to discuss. We just got to talk about the Terenophytes, Angiosperms and Gymnosperms. So it is pretty easy. Then we'll talk about the 10 important questions and then we'll be done. Tomorrow again we're going to revise your microbes in human welfare chapter, and then we will go back to your ecology, or we'll discuss your genetics, because you people wanted me to discuss genetics, right? So we'll do that, okay? Yes, Keshav, you have written something and I want to read it. Rasam Sambar. So what was that? Please let me know. Okay, so you had a pretty heavy lunch. You had a full meal, I guess. Is that so? Fine. Okay, so shall we go into plant kingdom? So please do like, share, because not a lot of people are here. So please do share the link with your friends. So quick. So please do like and share. Alright, so let me go into the plant kingdom. So today we'll finish a little before time because we do not have much, provided if we go in full pace and concentration. Alright, so diversity in the living world. So we were talking about first unit in your class 11. So it had 4 chapters. So we were done with the first 2. So the first two was your living world and your biological classification, and today we'll be done with your plant kingdom. And then we will talk about your animal kingdom. So before that, what is the weightage of each chapter, and accordingly we'll study the chapters. So accordingly we'll look at to how the questions are being made. So first, living world has 2% weightage, your biological classification 2%, animal kingdom 7%, and plant kingdom is 4%. Alright, so we were done with your first 2 chapters here. That is 2%, and this is done. So biological classification is also done. So we are left with your animal kingdom that will start next week, but today we'll complete your plant kingdom. Alright, yes. So if you talk about your class 11, we are done with your first unit. Then we still have morphology, then you still have biomolecules before we get into your plant kingdom and your before you get into your plant physiology and animal physiology. So I will try to make it quick so that we'll quickly complete the lectures and completely go into the revision mode. Alright, yes. So going forward, so the total is 15%, so we are not neglecting this unit. Okay, so you're feeling special. So what is so special on your birthday, so now? All our wishes, is that so? Alright, fine. So once again, a quick discussion of your plant kingdom. So what are we talking about? So we were talking about all this, if you remember. Yes, so today will be the last lecture of your plant kingdom. So we are done with talking about the classification. If you remember, I told you about 3 main types of classification. What are they? Once again, artificial, natural, and the third one was your phylogenetic system of classification. Apart from that, you have 3 more system of classification: numerical, cytological, and chemotaxonomy, right? Then classification of plant kingdom. So who are the members? So these are the members: algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms and angiosperms. We were done with studying algae, so I gave you examples, I gave you tricks to remember the examples of algae. So hope you remember them. So can you tell me what are the examples of brown algae? Quick. So can you give me the examples of brown algae? So here we spoke about 3 types of algae. We spoke about your green algae, we spoke about your brown algae, and we spoke about your red algae. So can you give me examples of brown algae? So that day we studied, right? Quick, if you can just give me the code, that is fine. So we remembered a code to remember your examples of algae, right? So what was that code? So yes, for red algae it is PG, Polysymphona, Porphyra, and then Gracilaria, and then Geladium. Alright. For brown algae, what was the tricks? Dear student, eat, study, sleep? No, eat, study, learn. So where is learn? You left off the most important thing. So it is dear friends. So we were remembering it like this. So please eat, learn, and sleep. So D stands for Dictoria, F for Fuca, F for what? Dear friends, it is not students, okay. E for hello, it is not enough if you remember this. So what are the words? What are the words that you have to tell me? What does E stands for? What does F stand for? Quick. So D for Dictyota, Fucus, E for L for laminaria, S for sargassum, ectocarpus. Yes, so that is more important, and don't confuse the synonym. Okay, so don't make friends as students, then you will get confused as to what does that S stand for. Alright, okay, so this is what we were talking about, and then we spoke about your life cycle of bryophytes. So do you remember the life cycle of bryophytes? So what is the plant body of bryophyte? Is it a sporophyte or a gametophyte? Is it haploid or diploid? Yes, your bryophyte plant body is haploid. So the main plant body itself is gametophyte. It produces gametes, right? Yes, gametophyte and haploid. So today we'll also talk about the plant life cycles, and we'll finish so that you can have an idea of how the questions are being asked. So once again, the classification of plant kingdom. So these are the members. Hello Akshay Kumar. Yes, so thank you so much for joining my session. So please do like, share and subscribe. So it is algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms and angiosperms. Alright, so today we'll quickly look into the pteridophytes, because pteridophytes is where we are supposed to start with. So what I want you to remember in pteridophytes, so quickly make a note of what I want you to remember, and this is how you will revise pteridophytes. Alright, so members of your pteridophytes are hostales and ferns. Okay, hostales and ferns. So what is the use of pteridophytes? They have medicinal purposes, and they use as soil binding ornamental plants. They are mostly used for soil binding purposes. They are also ornamental. So what do I mean by ornamental? So if at all you have a very posh house in your place, so they have plants inside the house, right? The one that is used for ornamental purposes. Even when you go into a lot of restaurants, hotels, they have plants within the enclosed room. So they are your ornamental plants, alright? Then what is more unique, the unique thing about your pteridophytes is that they are first terrestrial plants with your vascular system. So vascular system is your xylem and phloem. So they are the first terrestrial plants with your vascular system. Alright, then what is the habitat? So where do they live? So they live in a cool, damp and shaded region. So just like your bryophytes, remember hilly areas. So that is where they live. So that is their habitat. Alright, so what is the plant design here? The plant design is sporophyte. Okay, so if it contains vesicles or not, we'll talk about it when we are talking about your anatomy in detail, but not now. Okay, because now it gets confused. So this chapter only focuses on your types of plants. It does not talk in detail about your vessels, your xylem compartments. Okay, so I will teach you about xylem and phloem when we are talking about your anatomy. Is that clear? So that you don't have to get confused, because in that chapter again we'll be studying. So there I will teach you in detail. Fine? Okay. So plant design, the main plant body is your sporophyte. So sporophyte means it is diploid. Okay. So it is differentiated into true root, stems and leaf. So unlike your bryophytes, which was thalloid-like, which was not differentiated into a true root, stem and leaf. So this is differentiated into true root, stem and leaf. So it ideally looks like a normal tree. So how are the leaves? So there's a small difference in your leaves. So sometimes the leaves can be very small, that is micro. So micro is small. Microphyles, example is your Selaginella. So Selaginella is a type of your pteridophytes. Alright. Then large, you can also have large leaves. The large ones are called macrophylls. So macrophylls example is your fern. Alright, so you will remember the leaves are of two types, one is small and one is large. So the small one is micro, the large one is macro. Example of small one is Selaginella. You will remember small yes and Selaginella is yes. Large macrophylls, that is ferns. Yes, so if you remember one, automatically you can remember the other. Ferns are climbers, not exactly, but they are not climbers, so they have something like this. They are something like this. Alright, so if you go back to my plant kingdom and look in the picture of ferns, you will understand they are not basically climbers. Alright, so life cycle of Terenophytes, so that is more important. So yes, so what is the life cycle of Terenophyte? So unlike the life cycle of Bryophytes, so I am writing here. So in Bryophytes, so this is where you guys will get confused. The main plant body itself is gametophytic. So gametophyte is haploid. Why it is gametophyte? Because it produces gametes. Alright, yes, Salvinia, yes, that is also one of the Terenophytes. Yes, Illuminati, so thank you so much for joining my session today. Alright, so here the gametes are not free living. Okay, so here the gamete will undergo meiosis to produce your spores, and your spores will further germinate to produce your gametophyte. But here your sporophyte is not independent, it is attached to your gametophytes for a small time. Okay, but in case of Terenophytes, it's an entirely different story. So what happens in case of your Terenophytes? So Terenophytes, the main plant body is a sporophyte. Fine. So when I say sporophyte, it means it is diploid. Okay, so sporophyte, the main plant body contains what is called as sporangia. Sporangia is a bag. Fine. So that bag cannot hang in mid-air, it has to be connected somewhere. So it is supported by appendages like, it is supported by structures like sporophylls. So whenever it ends in phylls, it means it is a leaf-like structure. It is a leaf-like structure that is containing your bag, that is called as sporangia. Alright, this is sporophylls. Sometimes when the sporophyll is very distinct, when the structure is very distinct, it is called as strobili or cones. Fine. When the structure of your sporophytes is very distinct, it is called as strobili or cones. So what does your sporangia do? Your sporangia contains your spore mother cell. So HMC is your spore mother cell. So this will undergo meiosis to produce your spores. Fine. Now these spores, they will germinate to produce a photosynthetic free living gametophyte. Alright, so remember, from your sporophyte we are getting your gametophyte. So this gametophyte is free living and photosynthetic, so it is also known as your prothallus. So this gametophyte will have both your male sex organ and female sex organ. So male sex organ will produce your sperms, and this will produce your female gametes, and then you have the fertilization taking place. The zygote will be 2N here. So then the zygote will undergo meiosis, or it will germinate to produce your sporophyte again. Is that understood? Because the main plant body here is your sporophyte. So once again, talking about the life cycle of your Terenophytes, the main plant body is sporophyte, meaning the main plant body is diploid here. Okay, so this plant body contains your sporangia. So sporangia is nothing like a bag-like structure, and this bag-like structure has to be supported by some structure. That is your sporophylls. It is a leaf-like structure. When sporophylls are pretty distinct, it is called as strobili or cones. Okay. Now this sporangia contains your spore mother cells, and it undergoes meiosis to produce spores. So these spores, they germinate to produce your gametophyte. Alright, yes. So this gametophyte is free living, it is photosynthetic, and it is called as prothallus. So this gametophyte will contain a male sex organ and a female sex organ. Male sex organ is antheridium, female is archegonium, alright. So your male sex organ will produce sperms and your female sex organ will produce your female gamete. So you will have fertilization taking place. So once fertilization is done, you have a zygote formation. So this zygote will germinate to form your sporophyte again. So this is the reproductive cycle of your pteridophyte, alright. Yes, Pratyush, I can recognize you. So how are you? So now I guess you're used to the way I speak in English. So hope I'm not fast and you're able to understand. Is that fine? So Keshav, so sporangia contains both SMC and sporophylls. Yes. So sporangia is something like this. So it is a bag and this bag is held by your sporophyll. So this is your sporophyll, this is your sporangia. Okay, it is something like this and inside this you have your spore mother cells. It is something like this, Keshav, alright. Is that clear? So this is the life cycle of your pteridophytes. So this is the most tricky thing in case of your pteridophytes and your bryophytes. Is that okay? You're fine with my English also? Okay, so good vibes. Okay, fine. I am grateful. Okay. Now, apart from that, so under pteridophytes, you have to know it has two types of leaf. It has a fully differentiated body. You should also know the life cycle of your pteridophytes. And then you have 4 classes. Yes, again, they do not need water, but they need a very shady place for fertilization to happen. Okay, so unlike bryophytes which need water for fertilization, this pteridophytes, since they are free living, though they are free living in gametophyte, it needs a very shady place. Okay, it cannot survive in all places. Yes, not necessarily it needs water for fertilization, but it needs a very shady environment. The geographical area should be such that it can fit inside its habitat, so it cannot grow everywhere. So that is why number of pteridophytes are pretty less. Alright? Yes, so apart from the reproductive cycle of your pteridophytes, what else I want you to remember is the further classification of your pteridophytes, because it is given in your NCERT. So what is given in your NCERT we cannot skip. So that is why you should remember there are 4 classes. Remember, it is kingdom Plantae. So we are talking about a much broader classification. So this is kingdom Plantae. So after kingdom you have your phylum. After that, kids preferred sheaths, class, order. So here we spoke about your plant kingdom. Now we are talking about your class. So here your class of pteridophytes. There are 4 classes of your pteridophytes. Okay. So Psilopsida. So P is silent. Lycopsida, Xenopsida and Pteropsida. Here P is silent. Alright, yes. They cannot adapt for dye conditions. So what are you trying to ask me? Meaning algae is also marine, bryophytes are also marine. So bryophytes are amphibians. They can survive only for water. They need fertilization. But their habitat is such that they need a shady climate. Okay. So shady climate is also land. Okay. It is not necessary that they need water. Fine. So how will you remember these 4 classes of your pteridophytes? You will remember PS, love plants. This is plant kingdom, so you should love plants. So what is PS? So there is a very famous movie, etc., book, etc. PS, I love you, right? So PS is postscript in a technical term. So PS, love plants. Okay, so that is how you'll remember. P stands for Psilopsida, L stands for Lycopsida, S stands for Xenopsida, and another T stands for Pteropsida. Alright. So now the example, Psilopsida, Psilotum. So it is direct, right? So Lycopsida, Lycopodium. Also remember, when we are talking about pteridophytes, we are talking about the leaf condition. The leaf condition is selaginella, right? When it has a very small leaf, that is microphyles, it is selaginella. So you remember selaginella. Then Xenopsida is equisetum. Xenopsida is equisetum. Then Pteropsida is pteris, you can remember, or diopteris. Alright, so you can just remember these 2 examples. Here only one example. But I want you to remember the classes as well. So it is PS, love plants. Okay, ma'am? Okay, ma'am, I asked, doubt is they are able to live in dry conditions? No, extreme dry conditions they cannot survive, because in hilly regions it is not extremely dry. Alright? Yes, so is this clear? So this is all about pteridophytes that I wanted to talk to you. Now we are moving into gymnosperms. So what are gymnosperms? When your ovules are not enclosed by your ovary wall and they remain exposed both before and after fertilization. So when you have a naked seed, it is called as a gymnosperm. Okay, apart from that, I want you to remember cycas and pinus as well. The cycas and pinus is the example that is given under your gymnosperms, right? So you have a lot of conditions under your cycas and pinus. So remember, so we are going to talk about it. So this is how I want you to remember. So cycas, so how is the root? So the root is coloroid, meaning it is in association with your cyanobacteria which can fix nitrogen. So that is called as coloroid roots. Fine. Then pinus, they have mycorrhizal roots. So mycorrhizal is when they are associated with your fungi. So this is fungal association. So that is about the roots. Then stem, here it is unbranched stem, there it is branched stem. Here the leaves are both simple and compound. So we are done with morphology. So we should know what is simple and what is compound leaf, right? So here the leaves are pinnate leaves. So pinnate comes under your compound category. So here the needles are, here the leaves are needle shaped. Alright. Then the male and female cones are present in different trees. So strobili or the cones of male and female, they are present on different trees, but here it is present on the same tree. It is present on the same tree in case of your pinus, but different tree in case of your cycas. Is that understood? Yes, cycas is dioecious and pinus is monoecious. Yes, you are absolutely right, but I want you to remember the difference between cycas and pinus, because again and again you have question on cycas and pinus. Alright, is that clear? Fine. So what is the reproductive cycle of your gymnosperms? So gymnosperms are heterosporous. They can form one large one and then they can form one small one. So that is haploid, microspores and megaspores. So micro is small again, mega is large. Okay, so gymnosperms are heterosporous and they can produce haploid, microspores and megaspores. Alright. So strobili, the strobili here which carries your microsporophylls, is the structure on which you have a bag-like organ called as microsporangia. So together it produces your microsporangiate or your male strobili. So together that structure is called as microsporangiate or your male strobili. Alright. So this produces a reduced gametophyte because it undergoes reduced division and it has a limited number of cells. So what is the gametophyte here? That is your pollen grains. Alright, then talking about cones, so a strobili which has a microsporophyll containing a microsporangia, together it is called as a microsporangiate or a male strobili. Now talking about a cone that bears megasporophylls within the ovules. Okay, so here the structure is ovules or megasporangia. It is called as macrosporangiate. Here it is macrosporangiate, here it is microsporangiate. Fine. So it is called as female strobili or cones. Fine, is that clear? Clear? Fine. So here what happens is that you have a megaspore mother cell. Yes, because megaspore mother cell undergoes meiosis to give you spores. So this megaspore mother cell is differentiated from one of the cells of your nucellus. So nucellus is what is called as your ovules. Okay, so nucellus is protected by envelopes called ovules. So from one of the cells of your ovules, you have your differentiated megaspore mother cell. So this megaspore mother cell will undergo meiosis to give you 4 megaspores, that is 4 female gametes here. Alright, so one megaspore within the megasporangium. So out of 4, only one is functional and it develops into a multicellular female gametophyte. So here your male gametophyte is pollen grains. Here it produces 4 megaspores, but only one is functional that develops into a female gametophyte. So 2 or more archegonia or female sex organ. Alright, yes, it is understood. So here again the male sex organ is antheridium and the female sex organ is archegonium. Here also your gametes are not independent, they are not free living. Fine, is that understood? Yes. So now you understood what is the male, micro is male and mega is your female. Fine. So gametophytes do not have an independent free living gametophytic stage. So your pollen grains, okay, so that is about your angiosperms. So in angiosperms you will remember they do not have an independent free living existence. So now remember in bryophytes also it is not independent and even in gymnosperms also it is not independent. Only in Terenophytes your gametophyte is an independent photosynthetic one called as your prothallus. Alright. Fine. Now talking about the last part of the chapter, that is your angiosperms. So what are angiosperms? So when your pollen grains and your ovules are developed inside specialized structures called flowers, so meaning when the ovule is not naked, it has a covering, it is called as your angiosperms. So all your flowering plants come under this category. Okay. What is independent free living existence? Okay, that is a good question. So what is independent? You're not dependent on anyone. Okay, so here the gametophytic stage is not dependent on the sporophytic stage. So your gametophytic stage has its own pathway to follow. It is not dependent on your sporophyte, meaning it is not short-lived. Okay, it is free living, it can move about. Fine, is that understood? That is independent free living existence. Okay, now talking about your angiosperms, so they are your flowering plants. So here this is called, so they are present inside structures called as flowers. They have dicots and monocots within them. Apart from that, they have what is called as the embryo sac. So here again you have proper fertilization happening between the male and your female gametes. So you have proper fertilization happening between male gamete and female gamete. Alright. So the embryo sac here is a 3-celled egg apparatus. Okay, each embryo sac is a 3-celled egg apparatus. So what does this contain? So this is one structure. It contains one egg cell and 2 synergids. It contains 3 antipodal cells and 2 polar nuclei. So each embryo sac, it contains 3-celled egg apparatus. So what is the first cell? Egg cell and 2 synergids together comprise of one egg cell. Then 3 antipodal cells is the second structure. Third one is your 2 polar nuclei. Yes, good afternoon and thank you so much for joining my session. Is that understood? Yes. Now your synergids and your antipodal cells, they are very necessary for the proper fertilization to happen. What is 2 polar nuclei? So 2 polar nuclei is something like this. So they will fuse to form your secondary nucleus. Okay. Now in case of angiosperms, you have 2 male gametes. You have 2 pollen grains that is coming out. Fine. So one of your pollen grain, it will fuse with this egg cell and it will form what is your zygote. Fine. So this is your normal fertilization that is happening. Now the next pollen grain will fuse with your secondary nucleus and form what is your primary endosperm nucleus, that is pen. Okay, so since you have 2 fertilization happening, it is called as double fertilization. Is that understood? Yes. So why do we have double fertilization here? Is that clear? So each of your embryo sac, it has 3 egg-celled apparatus. So first one is 1 egg cell and 2 synergids. The next one is 3 antipodal cells and the third one is 2 polar nuclei. So your 2 male gametes are produced. So one male gamete fuses with 1 egg cell and it forms your zygote. So that is normal fertilization. Another pollen grain fuses with the secondary nucleus and it forms primary endosperm nucleus. Since there is 2 fertilization happening, it is called as double fertilization. So do you have any other doubt in plant kingdom? Because after this we are only going to talk about your alteration and generation of your plant cycle, and with that we will be done with your plants kingdom. Okay, so the last topic in this chapter is alteration of generations or your plant life cycles. So there are 3 life cycles which your plant can alternate between. So first is your haplontic cycle, then it is diplontic cycle, then it is haplodiplontic. Haplontic, haploid is N, diploid is 2N. So here they can intermate between haplo and diplontic cycle. Okay, so double fertilization is syngamy plus 3 fusion, that is 2 polar nuclei plus 1 male gamete. Yes. Okay, alright. So Illuminati is very thorough. So Naveen says crystal clear. So that is great. Okay. So now talking about your types of life cycles. So the first one is haplontic. So haplontic is where your plant body is dominantly haploid. Okay. So here your sporophyte. So remember your gametophyte is haploid. If you have a doubt, gametophyte is haploid and sporophyte is diploid. Okay. So your sporophytic generation is represented by only a single cell zygote. So in the entire life cycle of the plant, your sporophytic generation is represented only by the zygote, which means in the majority of the life cycle of plants, only haploid cycle is dominant. Only haploid cells are dominant, haploid cells are predominant. But your diploid cell is represented only by the zygote. That is why it is called as haplontic. Alright. So examples of algae that follows your haplontic cycle are volvax, Spirogyra and some species of your Chlamydomonas. Alright. Yes, you're right. Then talking about your diplontic cycle. So diplontic is 2. So here your sporophytic stage is dominant. Here your 2N stage is dominant. Your N stage is represented by only a few cells, but majority of the cells show diploid characteristics. Okay, so they show 2N character. That is why this is called as diplontic cycle. So examples are your gymnosperms, angiosperms, and your fucus. Okay, is this understood? Yes. Remember FAG. So gymnosperms, angiosperms, fucus. So fucus is an algae. So this is diplontic. Fine. Now what is haplodiplontic? When it can differentiate between both the phases. So both the phases are multicellular. For example, when you talk about bryophytes, the main plant body was your gametophyte. Then it produces your sporophyte, right? But in case of pteridophyte, the main plant body was diplophyte, but still it can produce an independent prothallus that is gametophytic. Yes. So now here you have both the phases happening, but in bryophytes haplontic is dominant, but it eventually ends in diplontic. In pteridophytes diplontic is dominant, but eventually it ends in haplontic. So that is why it is called as haplodiplontic phases. Example, bryophytes, pteridophytes, and you also have some algae like your ectocarpus, polysymphonia, and your kelps which follow a haplodiplontic cycle. Is that understood? So humans show diplontic, isn't it? Yes, you're right. Only our gametic cells show your haploid condition. So majority we are diploid. Alright, is that clear? So these are the examples. So main thing is you have to remember the cycle and who are the examples for that cycle. Is that clear? Yes, so with this we are done revising with your plant kingdom. So shall we move on to the questions of your plant kingdom chapter? Yes. So looking into the first question, in pteridophytes the dominant generation is. So when we were talking about pteridophytes, I told you the plant body is sporophytic. The main plant body is sporophyte. So sporophyte means diploid. Now look into the option gametophytic, haploid, diploid, triploid. It is definitely not gametophytic because in pteridophytes the main plant body is diploid because it comes under a higher level. Okay, so pteridophytes, gymnosperms and angiosperms. So pteridophytes are sporophyte, that is diploid. So here your answer is directly diploid. Yes. For bryo, haploid and gametophyte. So for bryophytes the main plant body is your gametophyte. So your majority it follows your haploid cycle, but it also exists in your diploid cycle. Alright, is that clear? Fine. So moving forward to the next question. So let's look into the next question. So in reduction division. So what is reduction division here? So reduction division is your meiosis. Yes, so why meiosis is called as reduction division? So because one cell gives rise to half the number of chromosomes, so that is why it is called as reduction division. So reduction division in pteridophytes occurs when? At which stage? Okay. So prothallus is formed. So prothallus, what is prothallus? So prothallus is your free living gametophyte. Fine. So prothallus is formed when? When your megaspore mother cells undergoes meiosis to produce spores, these spores germinate to produce your spore thallus. So this is wrong. Alright. Now gametes are formed. So gametes are formed by your gametophyte. So that is in a later stage which will not have meiosis. When spores are formed. Exactly. So what did I tell you in pteridophytes? You have what is called as sporangia. Sporangia. So sporangia contains your megaspore mother cell. Your megaspore mother cell will undergo meiosis to produce spores and these spores will germinate to produce your gametophyte. So now where reduction division is happening? So reduction division is happening at this position. So which means when the spores are formed, you have reduction division happening in your pteridophytes. Is this much understood? Yes? Okay. So moving on to question number 3. So pteridophytes and bryophytes differ in having. So what is the difference between your pteridophytes and bryophytes? One is spermatoids. Okay, so we never spoke about this term spermatoids. Okay, next is archegonia. So both your bryophytes and your pteridophytes, the female sex organ is called as archegonia. So this is not the answer. Separate gametophytes. It's not a separate, yes, both of them have separate gametophytes, so there is no difference in both. So they have a separate female and separate male, so it is also not the answer. but conducting system. So Terenophytes are the first vascular plants which had your first terrestrial plants which had your vascular system, that is xylem and phloem. So thus what do I mean by conducting system? That is vascular system, that is xylem and phloem. Alright, yes. Is it by anatomical system? So you're talking about the previous question. Okay, so I didn't, what is it by anatomical system? So I didn't understand your doubt, Keshavan. Alright, is that clear? So I'm moving forward to question number, so we were done with question number 3, so I'm going to question number 4. Alright, okay, so nothing. Oh my god, there's someone in the name Nothing. Why did you name yourself Nothing? So please take out the name. Nothing, what is Nothing? Alright, so hello, yes. Thank you so much for joining my session. So please do like, share and subscribe. Future Dr. Mahek. So hi, hello. So you have played my mentee, right? I remember talking to you. So hello. So that's nice having you in my session. So please do like, share and subscribe. Alright, yes. So question number 4. Which of the following is deemed to be vital in the development of seed habit? So this is one thing that I didn't tell you when I was teaching your Terenophytes. So in case of Terenophytes, you have your male and your female gametophyte, right? So when you have the zygote formation in your Terenophytes, the zygote is 2n, yes? So your zygote will germinate to form your sporophyte, because the main plant body is your sporophyte. But once your fertilization is done, the development of the embryo takes place within the female gametophyte. Alright, so here the development of embryo takes place within the female gametophyte, and that is called as your precursor for seed habit. So here what leads to the development of seed habit is your heterospory, because your male is called as microgametes, microspheres, and your female is called as megasporophils. Only when there is a difference between the two types of gametes, then only you can have a seed habit. Alright, yes, thank you so much Mahek, thank you. So what should I clear it? Please clear it. So what is it? Nothing? Alright, fine. So here your answer is heterospory. So moving on further to question number 5. So the structure that produces gametes in prothallus. So which structure produces gametes in prothallus? So once again, where prothallus comes? So prothallus is your free living photosynthetic gametophyte in case of your Terenophytes, right? So it is a gametophyte. Now this gametophyte will contain male and female sex organs, okay? So your male one is your antheridium that produces your male gamete, and this is archegonium that produces your female gamete. Now look into the options, anthers and archegonium. So anthers are present only in flowering plants, so it is irrelevant here. Then ascegonium and anthers, so we never spoke about the term ascegonium. Antheridium and archegonia, yes, they are respectively your male and female sex organs. So this produces your male gametophyte and this produces your female gametophyte. Alright, so this is the right answer. Is this much clear to all of you? Yes. Okay, so going on further. So question number 6. So ovule is morphologically equivalent to which of the following? So where does ovule come? Only when you have an enclosure called as ovary, you have ovules inside it, right? So where you have an enclosure, that is when you have a flowering plant, because they are structures enclosed within your flowering plants. So megaspore or megasporangium, microspore, megasporophyll. So your ovule is equivalent to your megasporangium, which contains your female gametophyte. Alright, is that clear? So your ovule is equivalent to your megasporangium, because so your ovules will produce your female gametophyte. Similarly, megasporangium will produce your female gametophyte in case of your Theodophiles. This is in case of your angiosperms. Is that clear? So what kind of leaf are you talking about? So a lot of plants have different varieties of names, but looking at the plant you may not be able to identify if it's a bryophyte or terophyte, because you have a hell a lot of them. So please give me an idea of how the leaf looks like. Okay, so that is how you find out. Okay, is that clear? So this is megasporangium. So going after this, so question number 7. Life cycle of gymnosperm is haplontic, haplodiplontic, diplontic, diplohaplontic. So gymnosperms, they come in the higher level of classification. So you started off with your algae, Bryophytes, Terenophytes, Gymnosperms and Angiosperms, right? So Gymnosperms, the plant body is haploid. So where it will become diploid? So at only one cell stage where you have your gametes, it becomes diploid. So it becomes haploid. So it follows diplontic cycle. Alright, less than 1 millimeter like this. Okay, so there are a lot of leaves. There are even modifications of your leaf. If you remember Ecornia that is present, that is your water hyacinth, they also have leaf like this. So looking at a smiley, I cannot conclude anything. Alright, fine. So this is your diplontic cycle. So that is why I gave you a tableau column to remember which plant life cycle or which alteration in dentation, which plant is being followed. So you have to remember what is haplontic, what is diplontic, what is haplodiplontic, and what are the examples that each follow. Yes, Vishal, hello. So you're pretty late to the class. So you have changed your icon. So saw any new movie? Is that so? Alright, so we have been discussing plant kingdom. So in the previous lecture, we stopped off with your bryophytes. So today we went forward with your Theodophiles, Angiosperms and Gymnosperms. And today we are talking about the questions. So we are done with discussing the chapter. So we are talking about question 7. Alright, yes. So here Gymnosperms follow your diplontic cycle. So which means all of you have seen new movie for Pongal. Okay, so question number 8. So gymnosperm plants do not produce fruits because they do not have. So fruits come from where? Fruits come from where? So we spoke about a transformation in your morphology, fruits and seeds. So fruits come from ovary and seeds come from ovules. Okay, so if they do not have fruits, it means they do not have ovary. Alright, yes. Alright, so you are enjoying your festival. So moving on to question number 9. So both Theodophytes and Gymnosperms have what in common? They both have seeds? No, Theodophytes do not have seeds. Independent Gametophytes. So Terenophytes, yes, your Gametophyte is prothallus, that is independent and photosynthetic. So yes, it is independent. In case of Gymnosperms, what is it? In case of Gymnosperms, how is the Gametophyte? The Gametophyte is not free living, meaning that is also independent, that is dependent, right? So here they differ in both the Theodophytes and Gymnosperms, they differ in what? So they differ, so I forgot to have differ, I wrote have. They differ in having independent Gametophytes. In case of Theodophytes, it's independent, but in case of Gymnosperms, it is not free living, okay? Which means it is dependent, it is not independent. Is that understood? Yes? Okay. I don't watch any movie in theatre. I don't know I like any movie. You don't know you like any movie. So which means you don't like watching movies. Alright, fine. So moving on to the last question of the evening, that is question 10. Sporophyte is not an independent generation in. So where did we talk about sporophyte as an independent generation? So in case of bryophytes, the main plant body is haploid, meaning the main plant body is gametophyte. So when it produces your sporophyte, that sporophyte is very, very short living and it is always attached to your gametophyte. So here your answer is bryophyte. Is that clear? So this is how the question will come. So they will trick you about what is the main plant body, what is the life cycle it is following, and a lot of things. Okay. Yes, Shimpi Zupe, so thank you so much for joining my session. So please do like, share and subscribe. I'm very good. How are you? You're good? You're saying hi to the operator as well. Alright, so that is so sweet of you. So this is how the questions will come. So in plant kingdom, if you have questions that is confusing, that might be from your gametophytic or your sporophytic stage. So remember, gametophyte is haploid and sporophyte is your diploid. Fine, is that clear? So Vishal, so please do watch the lecture once again from the start. Okay, so I have an important announcement to make. So tomorrow in Insta, so I'm coming live in Insta at 4:30 p.m. So ask me anything about NEET biology. Okay, so any question related to biology, we can meet in Insta at 4:30 p.m. It is just a 30-minute session. So we'll have a one-on-one session. Fine. So ask me anything from NEET biology alone. Okay, so we'll meet in Insta tomorrow. You're not in Insta, even I'm not in Insta, but I'll be coming from your Career Point page. All right. But tomorrow before that we have a class at 3 p.m. We'll be talking about microbes in human welfare. So we'll finish that chapter in 12th and we'll go for a revision in your genetics. Alright, is that fine? Okay, so it does not take time. You can download Insta. Yes? Oh, you want me to come live in Telegram. Alright, so let's see. Okay, So please do join me. It is live in YouTube as well. It's live in Insta as well. So please do join me tomorrow at 4:30. And if you have any doubts, we can solve it one-on-one. Yes. So please do join me for such sessions so that our rapport will improve and we have a good bonding. Yes. So will you join me tomorrow? So before that, join me for my live session tomorrow at 3 p.m. So we will discuss more. Tomorrow it is microbes and human welfare. So don't worry, I know I didn't keep Menti in this week after Monday, but I'll still come back with a bang on Saturday. So I have an interesting session planned for you on Saturday. So stay tuned for the updates on Saturday night. So we are going to talk about something very, very interesting. Alright, I hope your plant kingdom is clear. So we just have to revise animal kingdom and then we'll revise genetics in class 12. So Monday we'll start the revision of class 12 in genetics. Alright, so thank you so much for watching my session today and being a very wonderful audience. So this is me signing off. So you have a great evening ahead. So please do enjoy your festival as well. Alright, you will watch the recorded session. Alright, okay. Thank you so much guys and bye-bye.